you do that? How did you do that?
Welcome back everyone to another ESO build video. Today is going to be the update to the Toxicity build, formerly known as the Infused build. This is my main character, has been on the channel ever since I started YouTube, and this has been relatively similar in terms of its overall design ever since the beginning, and it's still pretty much there. However, patch per patch has had updates and variations and alterations throughout, and it is now stronger than it ever was. It's absolutely insane, and the good thing is we are still using our base kind of design and or setup, if you like, excluding a couple of switch outs here and there. Now, this is an advanced video, so I am of course going to explain everything just like I normally do, but I'm going to go a little bit less detailed if I can help it, because I do expect if you're coming for this kind of video to already understand what you're doing. If you're unsure about the DK full stop and you're quite new to the game or quite new to the DK itself, then there is a Murder of Fire build on my channel. You should probably check that out first. Anyway, we're going to go into this straight away with the stats. So we'll pop a potion and make sure everything's running. This is going to fall off really quick, but you get a quick example. 4.2k weapon damage, which we're not going to keep all the time. That is just a bonus we may be able to keep up through a rotation. But essentially, we're sitting on 15.9k max health, 30.8k stamina, and a 1,465 recovery, which is quite high. Our weapon damage is around the 4k mark with 55.9% crit. Now, in content, in combat, if your buffed and bonuses are all applied from your group, especially if you've got all the target dummy buffs from your group members, and you're taking advantage of minor courage and maybe even powerful assault and all that kind of stuff, you got your shinies in, you can hit easily over 6k weapon damage, and you'll be on 61.9% crit if you have a Nightblade in your group giving you minor savagery. So that will actually go up. Obviously your stam and health will go up if you have things like Warhorn, minor toughness, and Ebon. So those look really squishy at the moment. They kind of are, but this is an advanced build, and this is how I personally play the setup. And if you can't manage it with this amount of health, you can, of course, put more points into health. With 64 points into stamina, but you can go into health if you really want to, or you can change your food, which may mean you have to use more heavy attacks or such. But if you do put more points into health, by the way, just be aware, because this is not necessarily public knowledge. I mean, it should be, but it's not. But there are some people out there stating if you take out 20 points into stamina and put them into health, you'll still hit the same numbers. False. You will not. If you lose flat resources, you will lose damage. Now, that's the trade-off. If you want to put more points into health, you can, but you have to consider you're going to lose a few k DPS. Not a problem either way, because it hits like a steam train on acid, but if you want to do that, it's up to you. We're a stage 4 vampire. I've completed all the content with stage 4 vampire. I've never struggled with it. The only time I get wrecked is if I stand in stupid myself, or if a tank drops the boss. Simple as that. Pay attention to mechanics. But if you are struggling with stage 4 vampire, if you personally don't preference it, go down to 3. You'll be just fine, but you need to keep on top of that. We're using the Shadow Mundustone with a 19% crit damage bonus, which I'll go into when we get to the traits and stuff, and we're using Artaeum Takeaway Broth. Now, this gives you health, stamina, stam recovery, and health recovery. Our health recovery is down because we're a vampire, but it does give us a little bit, so it does kind of help. You can, of course, use other food if you don't have this at the moment, or you don't like to use it. It's quite expensive, but you can use Dubious Command Throne instead. It doesn't have the health recovery, but it does have a stam recovery, plus max health, plus max stamina. It's a little bit less, but it does work just fine. Or if you're really comfortable inside mechanics, you've got a shit ton of recovery, and you're not struggling because perhaps your group is all equipped for that kind of stuff, you can use flat, max health, max stam food. But you need to make sure your group is really bringing their A game with the buffs and bonuses. What I mean by that is you're going to need Dwemer Spiders flying around the room. You're going to need Master Staves from healers flying around the room. You're going to need quite a bit of recovery coming from other people to be able to benefit from the max stamina bonus, the highest one you can get, which is the same as basically this simulation food which people use on target damage, which I will be doing, which gives you the highest flat stamina bonus you can get, same as this, but it will give you stupid amount of recovery. That 500 almost recovery you can get from your group if you're extremely optimized. But be aware, 9 times out of 10 people are not. So the choice is yours. You can use whichever food you like, whichever you preference, but of course this one is a lot easier to sustain. Just have to watch your health. Now, I'm going to go into the skills first of all. Of course, I am going to explain them in detail so you do understand why they're there, what they do, and how they are actually affecting the overall build. I am also going to hopefully consider the fact that with this being an advanced build, you understand this kind of already, but we're going to go into it anyway. So, Venomous Claw is the first one, Ardent Flame, second ability to unlock, Searing Strike is the original version of it, morph it to Venomous Claw. This is your main single target damage over time ability that does a stupid amount of damage. It's your class ability, it lasts 12 seconds, the longer it's up, the more damage it does. So don't do this. If you're advanced, you shouldn't be doing this anyway. Yes, it has an initial hit, but it also gets stronger every 2 seconds, and it lasts for 12 seconds, so let it run out for its full duration. Next up is Noxus Breath. This is not quite single target. This does actually apply to single target in terms of buffing from our Maelstrom weapons. Yes, we're using them. We always did ever since the original build video. This does apply to the first target, but other targets around can be hit as well. They just don't get the bonus from it. This is an area of effect flame kind of effect, but it's poison. It comes from the Ardent Flame skill line. Third ability to unlock, starts off as Fiery Breath, morph it to Noxus Breath. Now, this is limited as well. This will actually apply Major Fracture, reducing the physical resistance by 5280 of all targets hit. But there is a cap. The cap is 6. Any abilities that have AoE generally don't have a cap on them at the moment. However, if it applies a debuff, they tend to be capped at 6. So if you look here, you'll see target skeletons that are covered in poison. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and all the rest aren't affected. Now, if you look carefully with my back bar ability, which is a damage over time on the ground, you'll see that they're all getting hit. So, area of effect abilities don't have a cap, except if they have a buff or debuff effect to them. So, that's very important. Keep this up the whole time as well. This also got buffed in terms of damage output. These two here, with our passives, got boosted for their duration and damage output. They're really, really strong. Next up is Consuming Trap. Now, this has been drastically altered in this update. This was Soul Trap to start with, morph it into Consuming Trap. Before, this used to cost magicka like it does now, used to last 10 seconds like it does now, and it used to give you resources back, although the resources now are much, much higher than before. But this now bases off of your base max stats. So instead of doing magic damage only, this will do magic damage or physical damage, depending on which one of the two you spec into. So we are obviously pushing out as much physical damage as possible, so for us this is a single target physical damage over time, and it is ridiculously powerful. Not only that, if an enemy affected by this dies, of course, you gain a soul gem, or you fill an empty soul gem, but at the same time, you gain back 20% of every single resource you have. This will heal us for almost 3.2k, this will give us almost 2k magic back, and this will give us 6k stand back if something dies. So if you're in a really big trash pool and your resources are quite low, you can put this on several targets, kill them all, and fill your bar. It's absolutely insane. So you do want to get that as soon as possible. I held back on this one for a little while because Zos were intending on changing it, and throughout the PTS cycle there were alterations as such. I'm still anticipating a change for this, but for the time being, it's live now, it's real, this is really, really strong. Next, I would like to technically say is our main spammable, but since the Dragonknight is really good at damage over time, that's what they're primarily built for, this isn't really a spammable for us, this is more of a filler. So this is in the dual wield skill line. It's very essential to the build. You must use this skill, but I'll explain how to use it in the rotation later on. This basically is very, very simple. Wrong ability, that's the soul trap. Stabby, stabby. Now, it does 3% more damage for each hit that you do, but the last hit will do 300% more. You must make sure the last hit connects. It's a 0.6 second channel time. So if you do this and swap bars too early, it won't count as the last hit, and you won't actually get your bonuses to your weapons that we're using. Also consider this, by the way, if you do find yourself too squishy, you can change this morph from Rapid Strikes to Bloodthirst. Now this again is in the dual wield skill line. First ability to unlock starts off as Flurry. Any morph of this whatsoever, even the base one, will work with our weapons, which I will explain in a bit. But you can use the one that does more damage if you want, or you can use the one that heals you for finishing the attack. Now the heal will be based on the last hit, and it's really, really good in stressful situations. I use it quite a lot, especially in content where the healers aren't quite so good, or where if the damage is coming in really, really hard and it's just too much to keep on top of. It does help. Yes, you will lose some damage, but the damage difference is very, very small. Flat out, DPS wise, on the big dummy, if you want to call it that, you're looking at 1k DPS drop at most if you change to the healing morph. I would highly recommend it, especially inside hard content, but it's entirely up to you. Next up is Rend and Slashes. This is the second ability in the dual wield skill line. Starts off as Twin Slashes, morph it to Rend and Slashes. Again, another single target damage over time. Physical damage, it is a bleed, but bleeds, do consider resistances in Scalebreaker. So this isn't going to go straight through. You're still going to need some pen bonuses. Now, of course, this does apply a snare as well, which isn't that important. And it does do an initial hit as well, just like Venom Claw does. When you cast it, it does an initial hit. Now, the difference to the other morph of this, which is Blood Craze, is the damage over time is identical. So you lose no damage. The initial hit is a little bit less, like 20-30% less. But you only fire that once every 10 seconds anyway, so it's not a major difference. Again, damage drop-wise, you're going to lose about 500 DPS overall. So these two here, if you change them to their other morphs, you're probably going to lose about 1 to 1.5k DPS maximum, which is not a lot when you're hitting over 100k. Now, what the other morph does have, however, instead of the initial hit, is you heal once every 2 seconds while the dot is running. So that does benefit you. So you've got two choices. Flat out Glass Cannon, if you've got a very, very effective group, or just for safety's sake, you can go with the two healing morphs, which are Bloodthirst and Blood Craze. The choice is yours. Flawless Dawnbreaker on the front bar. We do not use this for anything other than passives, although if a target is almost dead and you don't have enough ultimate to fire your back bar one, you can use this. But this was altered. This no longer grants us a 5% increase to weapon damage for being on the front bar. Instead, we have passives from the Fighters Guild skill line, which do benefit us. So this is an oh shit button if you need resources back, or this is a finisher if the target's almost dead and you don't have enough for the ultimate on your back bar. If you don't have enough for the back bar ultimate and you do fire this, however, you will gain 300 extra weapon damage for 20 seconds. It's really, really powerful. So in Undead, Daedra, or Werewolf situations and you're going through quick kills, you might want to spam this a little bit. It keeps your uptime for your weapon damage increase, and of course does physical damage over time as well. It's really, really nice skill. But we basically, again, we use it for passives. It's our front bar passive buff. We'll get to that in the passive section. However, there is something also to note. This has a 0.4 second cast time, which means you cannot animation cancel it. If you try to animation cancel this, it will cancel the skill. That's for PvP and PvE, by the way, so that's very, very relevant. In PvE, it makes everything make a bit more sense pace-wise, and in PvP, it stops people from getting nuked from stuff they didn't see. Next, back bar. Now, this is a flex slot, depending on your group. We are using Molten Whip. Now, we're not casting this ability. We are just putting it on the bar. It's Lava Whip from the Ardent Flame skill line. First ability you unlock. Now, what we want this for, morph it into Molten Whip. While slotted, whenever you activate a different Ardent Flame ability other than this, you gain a stack of Seething Fury, which increases your damage of your next Molten Whip by 33%. We don't need that. But what we do get is your weapon and spell damage increased by 75 for 5 seconds and can stack up to 3 times. So you can get 75, 75, 75, and then that will stay with you for 5 seconds, and then it will fall off again. Now, we don't have it on the front bar because we don't really have room for it unless we drop a dot, which we don't really want to do. But we do have room for it on the back bar. So we'll skip ahead a skill and say that we're using Flames of Oblivion, which is also from the same skill line. This lasts 15 seconds, does a fireball at the target, and bases off of your max stats. So this actually scales off of stamina for us. Every 5 seconds, it will fire 2 fireballs at 2 targets, or 1 at 1 target if there's only 1. And this is our Ardent Flame ability on this bar. So what we do, why are they relevant with each other, to each other? If we activate this, you see the little circle on my buff timers with a countdown. Looks like 2 eyes, and it disappears. Every time we come to the back bar, we're going to be using this. So that gives us 75 weapon damage. If we cast it again, it stacks 2. That's another 75. We're up to 150. If we did it again, it's another 75. We're up to 225. And if you swap bars, it stays with you until it runs out. So, we aren't going to get the full benefit of this, but we are going to get a weapon damage increase. But while we're on the back bar, we fire it, swap to the front, and then our weapon damage on the front bar is higher for a short period of time. So we do have that burst in there. It's not massive, but it does contribute. Now, also consider that our ultimate is also an Ardent Flame ability, which I'm going to explain in a moment. But if you cast this on the back bar, then this, you are guaranteed 2 stacks before you swap to the front bar. So this is a passive skill that we keep on our bar for the benefit of these two to give us weapon damage when we swap for a short period. Now, you don't have to have this on your bar if you don't want to. There are 2 options here. Option number 1 is you can have a Circle of Protection, which has been altered somewhat in this patch as well. Ring of Preservation goes from Circle of Protection to Ring of Preservation, and the Fighters Guild skill line, second ability you unlock. Now this will actually put down a circle on the ground, which will protect you and your friends, which is great. So anyone standing inside this, up to 6 people, will actually get minor protection increasing their damage mitigation by 8%. They will have minor endurance, increasing their stam recovery by 10%. And while inside of it, based on your max stats, stamina and weapon damage, they will actually heal every half a second. So this is a protection spell, a healing spell, a recovery spell if you like, or ability. And at the same time, there are Fighters Guild passives that you can benefit from. So instead of having to activate this or this to get a weapon damage bonus, we've already got one flat out on the back bar. The damage difference between the two is extremely close. We're talking about 200 to 300 damage over an entire target dummy kill or an entire raid pass. So this is very, very small, but the whip is slightly higher. This is more for utility, so you can swap this out if you want and take advantage of the Fighters Guild passives, which again we will get to. Failing that, if you want to drop about 1, maybe 2k DPS overall, you can of course go to the Assault skill line, and this is for safety's sake as well, sometimes you want to do this, and go to Vigor and morph it to Echoing Vigor. Now the original Vigor that we were using, Resolving Vigor, got changed to a very fast-paced heal, very, very powerful, but it's single target only. This one, however, has a 15-meter radius. It lasts 10 seconds, so heals you and your group over 10 seconds, so a heal every 2 seconds. But obviously, it's actually pretty strong. So we're talking 3.5k there. We're not even buffed. And that's with crits, obviously. So 1.9, 3.3. Now, when you're fully buffed, that can be an easy 4k to 5k heal every 2 seconds for you and your group. It's really, really powerful. So if you are in situations where you think you need to slot Vigor, and sometimes you do, then of course you can use that. Now this, again, is a flex slot. If you're really, really squishy and your group is really good at keeping you up, Molten Whip. If you need the extra protection, of course you can take advantage of Ring of Preservation, but watch your stamina because it's expensive. And if you need heals, you can use Vigor. The choice is yours. The difference in damage output is actually really, really small. So you're not trading off a lot to put that different ability in that slot. Right, next up is Poison Injection. This is also essential to the build. Very, very powerful. Bow skill line, 5th ability to unlock, starts off as Poison Arrow, morph it to Poison Injection. Now this will fire a single target damage over time ability at the target, but the lower their health goes, the more damage you will do. Over time, obviously, it does damage flat out, but it's under the 50% marker this really starts showing off. So, we've got lots of single target damage over time here. We've got this, we've got the Breath. Yes, it's AoE, but it does apply to single target as well. We've got another single target one here, another one here, our spammable there. We've got another one here. We've got loads and loads of single target damage over time, and the next ability is no different, although it was changed in the patch itself. So, Fighters Guild again. Barbed Trap. This used to be called Rearming Trap. Starts off as Trap Beast, morph it to Barbed Trap. When this goes down on the ground, it will immobilize the target if it can be immobilized. And in the meantime, while it's active, it will give you minor force, increasing all of your critical damage by 10%. But this used to last 6 seconds and then reapply for another 6. This no longer is the case. Now it lasts 18 seconds and does physical damage over time throughout while applying minor force. It's very, very powerful. They have drastically change this. You don't have to cast it every rotation, but if you want to be really efficient with your minor force, you probably should. But I mean, we do anyway, so we can sneak in another light attack on our bow bar. The choice is yours, however. Depends what buffs and bonuses you've got in your group. Very simple. Down on the ground, anything caught in that will take damage, including bosses, even though they can't be immobilized. Keep that in your rotation at all times. Now, Flames of Oblivion we did briefly explain. It's an Ardent Flame ability. We also explained that it makes a fireball, but you'll see it doesn't hit the target. It will only hit if you are in combat. And there's your fireball. And as I said, it will hit 2 targets. 3, 2, 1, 2 fireballs. Be aware of that. Very simple. Keep it in your rotation at all times. You don't have to spam it. Just cast it once every rotation and it will do the work for you. That, again, is in the Ardent Flame skill line. 5th ability to unlock. Morph it from Inferno to Flames of Oblivion. Now, we are using Arrow Barrage from our bow skill line. We used to use Endless Hail. Endless Hail still is very, very good. It lasts longer than this skill, so it's really nice for longer duration rotations. But we've got very fast-paced rotation, and this stays up almost 100% of the time. It's very, very strong. It used to fire every half a second, or Endless Hail used to. This actually fires now every 1 second for 8 seconds, and all enemies in area of effect, as I showed you earlier, will be affected. No cap. So yes, area of effect got reduced, but you can hit more targets. So your area of effect technically overall has actually gone up. Keep that in your rotation at all times. Next up is Standard of Might. This is in our Ardent Flame skill line. You need Ardent Flame level 12 to unlock this. Starts off as Dragonknight Standard, morph it to Standard of Might. And we want to use this all the time. This will do flame damage and area of effect every 1 second for 20 seconds. This has been buffed. This used to last 17, then it went up to about 18, now it's 20 seconds long. That's a massive, massive time to have this on the ground. All targets take damage, all targets get major defile, reducing their healing received, and while standing inside of it, you will do 15% more damage and take 15% less. This is absolutely incredible. Also, allies nearby can take a synergy and shackle stuff to the post, basically, and just pin them on the spot, immobilizing them for 5 seconds and doing really big area of effect flame damage. Now, check this out. Enemies inside there are stuffed. You do so much damage, it is crazy. 20 seconds on an ultimate like that is nuts. And of course, it's very, very expensive. It's 250 ultimate, so we want to make sure we use it, build it up, abuse the crap out of it, and don't use Dawnbreaker unless we really have to. We want to be using this at all times. Especially since your dot damage doesn't have to be applied in here to get the bonus. And what I mean by that is, if you already have dots on the target, and then you drop the banner, everything that is already running will be boosted, and then everything you fire afterwards will be boosted. So keep your dots on the target, then drop your banner, then start reapplying stuff. Don't run up, drop a banner, and do nothing. Make sure your dots are already on. It's much, much more effective. Now we're going to get into passives. Oh, there's also one more switch out, by the way, just in case you want to take advantage of it. If you do heavy attack a lot, if you're using flat food, you can drop your DPS a little bit and remove Flames of Oblivion and replace it with Molten Armaments. This will increase your heavy attack damage by 50%, and it will also give your group major sorcery. 12 people. The other morph of this, by the way, is Molten Weapons. No, Igneous Weapons, sorry. And that will actually give major brutality to everyone, including you, but it won't give you the heavy attack damage. So the choice is yours either way, but if you do want to slot this, especially for the Earth and Heart passives, then of course you're welcome to do so. That, by the way, is from the Earth and Heart skill line, and it's the second ability to unlock. You've got 2 choices for morphs depending on the situation, and you've got an option as to whether you want to keep this on or put this on instead. It does actually help with your sustain, but we're going to get to that because we're now on to the passives. Now, Ardent Flame, you need all of these. This increases your damage of burning and poison status effects. If you do fire damage, there's a chance to cause burning status effect, which does a single target damage over time in the form of flame to the target. If you do poison damage, which we do, we got a lot of poison. We've got poison on our poison injection. We've got poison from our venom claw. We've got poison from our breath. We've got poison from our poisons. We've got loads of it. So if you do poison damage, you have a chance to proc a poison status effect, which again is a single target damage over time ability. Either one of these, the burning or poison status effects, are enhanced on the Dragonknight, so we do more than anybody else. At the same time, if burning is applied, you will restore 500 magicka. If poison is applied, you'll restore 500 stamina, and this effect can happen every 2 seconds. Note, by the way, it says each effect can happen once every 2 seconds. That's right. Before, it was 5 seconds and either one of them would fire. Now it's a 2-second cooldown, and both of them can fire. So if you have burning and poison now, you don't dip into one or the other, you get them both. This, when you deal direct damage with an Ardent Flame ability, you reduce the enemy's movement speed. That's not that important, although with ads it's quite funny, but get that anyway. Increase the damage of your Fiery Breath, Searing Strike, and Dragonknight standard abilities by 10%, and the duration by 2 seconds. That's right. This, and this all got buffed. Absolutely mental. Now, the final one is World in Ruin. Increases the damage of your Flame Area of Effect abilities by 6%, and decreases the cost of all your Poison abilities by 25%. Now, the only Flame Area of Effect ability we have is the Standard of Might, so that is boosted. And, of course, our Poison abilities, we've got a few of those. We've got Poison Injection, which is reduced for us, 25% reduction to cost. Venomous Claw, 25% reduction to cost. And Noxus Breath, 25% reduction to cost. You'll notice that our Poison abilities here are extremely cheap. Our physical ones are still quite expensive, although we're using 7 medium, so it's down a bit. But everything else is cheap. All of our single target or AoE dots are cheaper than the others because of our class. Really, really handy. Draconic Power, you're not going to need all of these. Increase the amount of damage you can block. You do want to get that. While a Draconic Power ability is active, your healing received is increased by 12%. This is one you don't need unless, of course, you put a resist buff on. But you're going to have to jiggle your skills to be able to do that. Or, hopefully, you've got a Warden in your group giving you Major Resolve and Major Ward. But if you do slot one, you'll need this. If you don't, you won't. This increases health recovery by 5% for each Draconic Power ability slotted. Again, we don't have any, so there's no point. So you can dump these two if you want. This increases your spell resistance by 3300. This is essential. We do want to get as many resistances as we can. We're medium squishy, so take this bonus. Most things you get hit by are usually spell damage for the most part. There's a lot of physical in the game, but there's also a lot more magic-based attacks that you'll get hit by. This is a really good buffer. Earth and Heart is essential. Increase the duration of Earth and Heart abilities. If you're using this, or Igneous Shields, for example, if you're in Maelstrom, which is quite handy, this timer will increase. It will last longer. And of course, if you are in real danger in some content, you may want to swap this Standard of Might for Corrosive Armor to make sure that you basically can't die for 12 seconds unless it's a guaranteed one-shot mechanic. All damage you take will be 3% of your max health, no more. So if you are in trouble, you haven't got a healer, you're struggling, you're in a pug and you can't do anything about it, take off the banner, replace with Corrosive Armor, and of course this passive does increase the duration. This, when you cast an ultimate ability, you restore 46 health, 46 magicka, and 46 stamina for each point of ultimate cost. That is mental. So, the higher the ultimate cost, the more of this you get back. Which is why we use the most expensive ultimate we've got. In content, actually against the big target dummy, so we'll say buffed. While buffed, that banner alone will give you 20,000 health back. We don't even have 20,000 health, so you can imagine what this does to your resources. But here's the tip for this. Obviously, this gives us stuff back. So you want to make sure you've got stuff missing. So don't drop a banner at full stamina and full magic and full health. Put some dots down, make sure you're doing stuff, throw out some shapes. Once your stamina is down a bit, then you drop it. Again, same premise as before. Dots down first. Make sure that you're doing some damage and then drop the banner in between. It will fill the resources up and it will make your already ongoing damage stronger. When you cast an Earth and Heart ability, you and your group gain minor brutality for 20 seconds, increasing weapon damage by 10%. And if you are in combat, you also generate 3 ultimate, and this can happen once every 6 seconds. This is why this Molten Armament skill is actually quite relevant, depending on the content you're in. You can put it here actually sometimes and keep this on, but you have to watch out because it costs magicka. You can actually slot it here. And if you do so, not only will you increase your heavy attack damage and major sorcery for everybody else, but, of course, you will have minor brutality. Now, if you've got a Dragonknight tank and you spam an Igneous Shields, you're pretty much covered with this anyway. But if you don't, you can be the one to give everyone that 10% extra weapon damage bonus. So, again, pay attention to those passives. They are really, really important if you utilize them. Also, one more thing. When you cast an Earth and Heart ability, you restore 990 stamina. In some content, you might be struggling with sustain. This will actually give you stamina back every time you cast it. Is very, very helpful indeed. You don't have to use it all the time, but they're very, very, very important passives, so pay attention to them. You may want to swap out some of these skills occasionally. Now, next passive. Where are we? Dual wield. Get every single one of these. This will increase your dual wield damage and from abilities and your light and heavy attacks against targets that are under 25%. So 25% and under, you start executing basically by just doing what you're doing. This will increase the weapon damage of your offhand weapon. Offhand weapons generally have less weapon damage, so this will increase it a little bit. Reduces the stamina cost of dual wield abilities. Of course, you want the cost down. Gives you a 15% damage bonus when attack and stun, demobilize, or disorient, or silence enemies. So if they're debuffed to any effect that applies to any of these, you will do more damage. Grants a bonus type based on the weapon equipped. Now, we are using one axe, which gives us an 8% chance for a 13k damage over time ability, excluding crits. And we're using one dagger, which increases our crit rating on the front bar by 1095. We are not using any other weapons, but if you did use a mace, you would go through physical resistances, which were already covered. We've already got that sorted on our CPs. And if you use a sword, you would get a 3% damage increase. Taking away a crit chance obviously means less crits in replacement for a sword, which means more flat. So they do get quite close. They can balance out. And taking away the dot from the axe as well, sure, it's a chance, but the sword can obviously cater for that missing damage. It's very, very close, but since Bleeds on Axes got buffed back up again this patch, it's actually quite nice to go back to the dagger and axe, kind of like it was in the original setup, for an extra, and stay with me on this one, about 1 or 2k DPS increase. It's tiny. But if you want to go optimized, since this is an advanced build, one dagger, one axe. Just like it was 3 years ago. Almost 3 years. Now, bow passives, of course, you want to make sure you get all of these. This gives you a damage bonus of up to 12% against enemies at longer range. So while you're approaching the fight, on the way in, you are at range, you will obviously do more damage. Or if you're in mechanics and you have to move out, and then in again, any damage from the bow will be increased. So that's very important. Increases weapon critical rating by 1095, same as the dagger. So on the back bar, we've got a crit bonus as well. Reduces the stamina cost of bow abilities. You want to get the cost down, they are quite expensive. But the reduction to cost here also applies, obviously, to poison injection, because it's a bow ability, but because it's poison and we're a DK, we also get a 25% reduction there. Just note, by the way, reduction to cost was altered in Scalebreaker. Before, some things were additive, some things were multiplicative, and they didn't really add up. Now they're all multiplicative, so the more stack-ups of reduction to cost you have, the less effective it becomes. It still works, but it gets less and less and less. Same as mitigation and stuff like that. Dealing damage with light or heavy attacks, increase your damage of your bow abilities by 5% for 5 seconds, stacking up to 5 times. We are not going to get full use of this, but we do want to take advantage of it. Now, as you'll see here on my buff timers at the bottom, there's an eye with a number 1 in it, and it's counting down from 5. And there's another one, and they're going up and up and up, and they will go up to 5. We're never going to get 5 stacks, unless we're at range in mechanics trying to keep up our Reliquin procs, which I will explain in a moment. But in our rotation, we will do 1 light attack at the beginning, 1 there, 1 there, 1 there. We will be able to keep up 3 to 4 of those damage bonus ticks, which will mean our ongoing bow damage from our abilities will be stronger. Now, if we have 3 to 4 ticks going, we can have up to 20% increase to those abilities. They will fall off on the front bar, but they will give us a damage boost nonetheless. So that's very important to keep up your light attacks on your back bar. Now, of course, the last one is Hasty Retreat. This is very important. Inside mechanics, you will need to dodge roll. If you do so, make sure you do it on your back bar, because if you do, you'll run faster for 4 seconds. Just be aware, there is a timer on dodge roll, and if you re-dodge roll, if you like, too soon, it will cost you more, so be careful with that. We aren't using any light armor, so we don't need this. We aren't using any heavy armor, so we don't need this. We are using just medium. 7 pieces of medium, ultra squish. For each piece that you wear, you get a crit bonus, so we've got 2,300 crit extra there for the weapon 7 pieces. We have increased the stam recovery and reduction to cost. We have improved sneak, which is really handy. I do like to sneak around a lot, especially in solo content or PvP. We have increased 15% weapon damage, which is insane. And we also have a movement speed increase and reduction to cost for dodge roll. We do dodge roll, we do run, we use the same pool for everything. Blocking, dodging, breaking free, healing, doing damage. Everything we do is done with the same bar. So we need to get those reduction to cost in, we need to get the recovery in, all that good stuff at once. Now, we are, of course, using the Soul Trap ability, but you don't necessarily need the passives. So if you want them, get them. If you don't, then that's up to you. Vampire, of course, we are using these 2. This one will give you increased mag recovery, which we do need. We're using 2 magic abilities. And increased stam recovery, which we do also need, obviously, to keep our sustain up. So that's very, very important. You need stage 2 or higher. And this one, you need stage 3 or higher. When you get hit, you take damage. When you go below 50%, you take up to 33% less damage for having this passive. Really, really powerful. I would highly recommend it. I'm stage 4 all the time, but you can go stage 3 if you want. Just don't dip below stage 3. Stage 4, because I always have this sneak passive. But, again, the choice is yours. I would highly recommend that. Fighters Guild. This is where the passives start making sense. Remember, we have this on the front bar. It is because of this. Because of the weapon damage bonus that we get for having it on the bar. Each ability on your bar that is a Fighters Guild ability will give you a 3% increase to weapon damage. So, on our front bar, we have a 3%. On the back bar, because we've got Beast Trap, we also have 3%. Remember I told you that you can use Ardent Flame abilities and increase your weapon damage here? Well, again, Ring of Preservation, like I said earlier, will give you a further increase to weapon damage with this bonus. So on the back bar, we actually have a 6% increase, which fills the gap. Because on the bow, you have less weapon damage. So this does actually close it up. And it doesn't mean we have to actually apply abilities to get it. So that's where the DPS difference is slightly altered. So you can have a good passive bonus here, or you can have one which occasionally falls off with the whip. But remember, when you swap to the front bar, you don't have the Fighters Guild passive from that back bar bonus. You do have the whip bonus. So it depends what you can keep on top of. Also, if you take off Flames of Oblivion for the sake of Molten Armaments, if you are happy to lose that small amount of DPS to add some utility, then of course you can still take advantage of the Circle of Protection and get the weapon damage bonus regardless. You don't have to activate anything to make the whip work. Again, choices. It's all about understanding the class, understanding the setup, and being able to adapt versus the situation. Intimidating Presence is extremely important because it reduces the cost of Fighters Guild abilities by 15%. This isn't too bad cost-wise, but this is very expensive and you don't want to spam it, so you do want to get the cost down. And of course, Banish the Wicked. When you kill undead Daedra or werewolves, you will get 9 ultimate per kill. Very, very strong indeed. Make sure you get this as soon as possible. You are likely to be the one killing stuff. And of course, your Fighter's Guild abilities deal an additional 20% damage to undead, Daedra, or werewolves. This beast trap is dirty. It is so powerful, and you will do more damage to those types of targets. Major Guild's not important. Sigic's not important. Undaunted is. Make sure you get this passive, and make sure, for God's sake, you take the synergies. Every synergy you take will be beneficial to you, whether it be a heal, a damage shield, or damage output, or a buff of some description. But for doing so, also, you will take extra resources from each synergy. Every synergy you pick up will give you 4% max health, stamina, and magicka. And inside content, when you're actively taking synergies inside your rotation, you can actually help yourself stay alive and sustain like hell. In an optimized situation, what I mean, I don't mean copy and paste everything else. I mean a situation where your group are all pulling their own weight. They all brought their own synergies, buffs, bonuses, and all that good stuff. And you've got an abundance of them. This is insane. Very, very powerful indeed. Just for argument's sake, you take 5 synergies. That's a 20% resource gain. Very, very nice indeed. This, by the way, is very important, but it's less effective for us than it is for others, but it will still benefit us nonetheless. For each different type of armor worn, you will gain 2% to all resources. Health, magic, and stam. We're only wearing one type. We're wearing 7 medium. We are benefiting from all the medium passives up to their maximum, but we do have less than people using 511 in terms of our flat resources. But you will want this just so we can get our maximum that we're allowed. Now, we don't need any passives there. We are, of course, an orc. You can be any race you like. There's no limitations on it. Just depends on what you favor. But there are bonuses to being an orc that do help this build a lot and make it do all the shiny stuff that it's doing. So, first of all, we have an increased max stamina of 2k, which is insane. Very, very high. Highest bonus in the game. Same as the Red Guard, the Wood Elf, and, of course, the Imperial. We do have 1k max health, which is not the highest, but it's also a high health bonus. Nord also has a health bonus, but Imperial has the highest. Imperial has 2k. But this does help us a lot. But at the same time, when you deal damage with a weapon ability, so any dots that you've got running that are weapon abilities, or any light attacks or heavy attacks, will heal you for 600 health, and this can happen once every 4 seconds. Now, I've got heals shown even if I'm full health, so you'll see this actually heal me. You'll see there I actually got 600 out of that, but if you crit it, you can actually get a bit more, so 945, and that's without buffs. Buffs from your group for healing received and all that good stuff can actually make that a lot higher. So you can go in excess of over 1k heal every 4 seconds. Really, really helpful, especially alongside these 2 skills if you do choose to change them to the healing versions of them. Very nice indeed. We are, of course, taking advantage of all the orc passes, which includes the last one, which is increased weapon damage of 258, which is nuts. The only other race that has that is the Dark Elf. But of course they don't have the healing ability, the extra health, and all that good stuff. So this is really, really nice. Just take into consideration, however, some other races can sustain better. We don't have any sustain passives, so that's why we have the squishy recovery food. But if your group is optimized enough to have all those nice recovery bonuses in place, then of course you won't struggle. This also reduces the cost of sprint, which our medium armor does as well, and increases our movement speed, which again medium armor does. We are really, really, really fast as an orc. So we're fast, we hit hard, we've got high stamina, we heal from our hits, and we've got good health bonus as well. Really, really nice. Again, you can go Khajiit, Dark Elf, Red Guard, Nord, Wood Elf, whatever you like. But for this particular build, I'm deliberately going for the orc. Finally, the most important passive in the game, in my opinion, is medicinal use. Multi-crafting is a thing now. You can make potions so fast, so it's going to take you a minute or so to max this out if you've got the materials. Get this skill line maxed, get medicinal use, and then dump all the rest of the points if you don't want to make potions for the rest of your life. But this will increase your potion uptime. So, our potions last 47 seconds, and our cooldown is 45. Keep your potions up 100% of the time. And also, just to counter an argument that's been out there recently, it's getting on my nerves, to be fair. Watch my potion. While I'm hitting, you can see that the potion is pulsing. You see that? The potion is pulsing, and I'm not pressing it. Same for this dummy as well. The more that's going on, the more it pulses. Buff up times. Every time you get buffs and bonuses or apply buffs and debuffs, you will get a pulsing effect on your potion to let you know that stuff is going on and it's not quite ready yet. No, I'm not spamming a feckin' macro. Just saying. Now, gear. Oh, one more skill swap up, by the way. If you are in AoE situations, there's lots and lots of trash ads and all that good stuff. Keep Soul Trap on because it gives you resources back, but you can change this to Whirl and Blades if you prefer. So you can change this to your Execute, which is really, really nice. You just stand in the middle of stuff and spin to win, and it can nuke stuff. Based on our setup, I've actually seen, fully trial buffed, I've actually seen way over 100k per hit, but you're going to average around 50-60 if you crit it. Really, really nice. Now, gear. Maelstrom stuff. Maelstrom Dagger, Maelstrom Axe. What a surprise. Back to basics. This is how it's been since the very first build video of this kind. But bleeds went up, so we're back to the axe instead of the sword. One known-honed, one sharpened. This set got changed. Now, I made a video recently, and there was loads of crybabies about it. Then I explained how this is actually not a nerf, and this is actually buffed, and now all of a sudden everyone's a genius. This used to give you 2003 weapon and spell damage to your single target damage over time abilities if you use Flurry first, then an ability. Flurry first, then an ability. That is no longer a thing. You don't need to do that. What you need to do is cast Flurry once. It will last 4 seconds, and every single target damage over time ability you have running will be boosted by 1k weapon and spell damage. All you need to do is keep up that 4-second timer. So reapply it just before it runs out. That's all you need to do. Example. Before, you needed to do rapid strikes, light attack, dot, and it would consume it. Then you'd have to go rapid strikes, light attack, dot, and it would consume it again. But we've got Venom Claw, we've got Rend and Slashes, we've got Soul Trap, we've got the Breath, which does count, we've got Poison Injection, we've got Beast Trap. You're never going to empower every single one of those, are you? Well, now you can, because you just put them on, every single one, and keep up 1 rapid strikes every 4 seconds. As you can see, my buff timers, look, the little stabby symbol, the brown one at the end. As long as you keep that up, they're all buffed. And the difference is, I'm going to buff up slightly, nothing major. Just major brutality, for example. In fact, we'll go here. So, we're buffed up from the dummy now. Right. Venom Claw, apparently, hits for 31,000 over 12 seconds, excluding crits. Buff it. Now it hits for 37,000. Soul Trap hits for 39, and Rend and Slashes, although it now says 26, it's actually 31. So it's really, really, really strong. You've got to keep up 1 rapid strikes every 4 seconds. Now, yes, it will fall off slightly on the back bar, but the trick to that is making sure it goes back on again as quick as possible. So those weapons got buffed to hell in that respect. And, of course, the Dragonknight is built for single target damage over time. Why would you not use them? They're really, really powerful. We are using poisons, of course. These are going to be on the website, of course, how you create them. In fact, no, I'll just tell you. Nirnroot, Nightshade, and Fleshfire Lava. But I'll put it on the website as well. These can proc off of weapon attacks, so light attacks and heavy attacks and weapon abilities. And they do fire a lot, and they do 2 poison dots. Again, we've got 2 poison dots here. We've got a Venom Claw, we've got a Poison Injection, we've got our Breath. We are doing a lot of poison. Hence the name Toxicity, although salty people thought otherwise, which is hilarious. It's not all about you. But again, that's 5 poison dots. Every single one of them has a chance to proc a poison status effect, and as you know, the poison status effect is stronger for us. It's very, very nice indeed. Now, to add to that poison stuff, if you use a Poison Injection with a Master's Bow, you will increase your weapon damage against targets affected by the Poison Arrow. And it says targets affected. Now, before, this would only affect 1 target. So, what have we got here? Light attacks. Doing 5.9. Yep. Now they're doing 6.8. As you can see, other targets are affected. So, before it was 1 target, and it would switch the buff from one to the other. Now, as long as something's got Poison Injection on it, you will do more damage to them. Every single one of them. Obviously, that's tricky because you've got to keep up a rotation on single target. But if you've got ads in the room, you will do more damage to them. And that makes a lot more sense when it comes to stuff like this. So, this is the boss. Him there, he's the boss. So, I'm weighing into him, doing damage, and volleys on. This guy here has taken X amount of damage. But if I put a Poison Injection on him as well, and then just carry on, he's now getting hit harder. Hopefully that makes sense. Pay attention to mechanics. It's quite tricky, but it's really, really strong. It was always strong anyway, but that has been somewhat altered for that respect. Now, next up is, of course, our 5-piece set. We are not using a monster set. On this particular build, I've never used a monster set, not even since 2016. It's really, really beneficial to take advantage of two very nice flat 5-piece sets alongside the Maelstrom weapons. This is a damage over time build. These boost your damage over time single target. This boosts all of your damage single target. And this increases all of your damage over time for physical, bleed, poison, and disease damage. So again, to add to the poison theme, this boosts it. This boosts everything that we're doing. Now, what damage over times will this affect? If we look at our skills, this, and this, if we use it, the banner won't be affected, but our overall damage is obviously boosted when this happens. That's physical, that won't be affected, that's physical, that's physical. So every single basic skill that we're using, or every single skill in our rotation, except for Flames of Oblivion and our ultimate, is actually affected by this bonus. But while the ultimate is running, that does increase your damage by 15%. This damage is all boosted already by the Maelstrom weapons, is boosted again by Deadly, and is boosted again by the percentage increase. You can see again how these are stacking bonuses which work really, really well. We are not using Loki for Major Slayer. We don't need Major Slayer because we can already do a crap ton of damage. And for argument's sake, if someone is beside us, let's say a Warden, maybe a Nightblade, or maybe even a Templar, and they're using War Machine or Master Architect, and they're beside us, they can keep up their ultimates easily. And every 10 seconds that they fire an ultimate, or every 10 seconds after they fire an ultimate, we can get Major Slayer from somebody else. So effectively, we can wear 3 sets. We can put out just as much damage as anyone wearing Loki, but we can gain extra damage by other people buffing us. It's all about your group composition. Essentially, this set actually gives you a nice flat bonus as well. You get weapon damage twice and a crit chance, so that's really, really good. But these stack like hell. Next up, of course, is Perfected Reliquin. You can use the basic version. You don't need Perfected, but you will lose 1k stamina. Just consider that. But this is crit chance, 5% increase to all damage while in trials, dungeons, or arenas, and 1k max stamina. The stamina, is only for Perfected. This applies when you do light attacks or heavy attacks, by the way. Every 1 second, you can do a light or a heavy, and you will gain a stacking wind up to a maximum of 20. And as long as you keep up those light attacks and don't let any drop off within 5 seconds, you will keep this bonus up all the time. Now, it is an advanced build, so we're going to explain it. Very simple. Light attack. You can see the spin. Light attack again. You can see another spin. It goes up and up and up. We're looking for the blue whirlwind in the buff timers. That falls off. All your stacks start again from nothing. If you cannot keep up those procs actively in combat, you've got 2 choices. Practice or take it off because you're losing too much damage. But in combat, in content, in fact, when you're in mechanics, your bows count as well, your bow shots. So all you do is you get backwards in and out of mechanics, make sure that you're avoiding stupid on the ground. Even if you're not applying dots, keep those bloody stacks up so when you come back in, you can continue with your rotation. If you let them fall off, you're losing anywhere up to 10k DPS in a trial situation. It's absolutely insane. But you don't have to use that if you don't want to. Some mechanics won't allow you to keep those procs up, especially on fights like Zamaja and things like that. So what you can do instead is you can put on Alkosh. And this is, again, it's been in the video ever since the very beginning in 2016. It's really, really powerful. It has a crit bonus, a weapon damage bonus, so your flat is a little bit higher. 5% bonus to damage, just like Reliquin. And if you activate a synergy, you send a shockwave in front of you, which does physical damage initially, and then physical damage over time for 10 seconds, and reduces physical and spell resistance. Now, the physical and spell resistance debuff lasts for 10 seconds. If you take another synergy, it will just reapply it. So they don't stack. But the dot, the damage over time, 2 things to note here. 1, every synergy you take has an additional 17k damage over time. Almost 18, in fact. In fact, there's a bit more when you get your buffs in. And this is buffed by Deadly. So, Deadly buffs physical damage over time, poison, bleeds, all that kind of stuff. This is physical, it does buff it. So while wearing Deadly, you actually get a higher Alkosh proc, and for every single synergy you take, they stack. So I don't need to explain it fully to you, because again, it's an advanced build, you should be able to pick this up. But your initial hit obviously hurts, that's direct, and the damage over time, we'll say for argument's sake, it's almost 20k. 5 synergies, that's 5 20k dots. In area of effect. The trick to this, though, is you need to aim it. Aim it at the target. It's flat, straight in front of you. It's not around you. It's not, oh, I'll turn to the corner and take a synergy. You have to aim it. This is an advanced set for a reason. There's a reason lots of people didn't use this on a DPS for the most time. It's not because it's a bloody tank set, because it is not. Sure, you can utilize it, but it's not a tank set per se. It's because most people don't know how to bloody use it. They just assume you take 1 synergy and that's it. You just get a debuff. The damage output from this is actually huge. I don't know if I can take a synergy and show you. I think I can, actually. Quick demo. The target dummy's only got one synergy, so it's very, very, very bad to try and practice on this dummy. A lot of the synergies you receive are actually healing ones, so you can't take them unless your health is less than 100%, so you can't really demonstrate it on the dummy. But we'll get a synergy off him anyway. I'll aim it at these dudes. Give me that synergy. Come on. There we go. Watch this. Look at that! Up to 6 targets max. Remember what I said at the very beginning? Any debuffs on an ability will only hit 6 targets. Same applies for sets as well. But 6 targets being debuffed by 3k and 6 targets having a 17 to 18k dot on them multiple times is a shit ton of damage. A lot more than just one target getting a Reliquin proc. So, it's situational, of course. It depends on what you're up against at the time, but those are your choices. Also, Azura's Blight is actually quite a really cool set. It doesn't do as much as Reliquin flat out, but it does stay on the target. So the more dots on a target, the more procs you get, the more damage it does, and you can use this very effectively inside mechanics. So if you are struggling with Alkosh, or you don't have it, or you're struggling with Reliquin, maybe it's just not for you, Azura's Blight is actually really, really good. Or Azure Blight, however the hell you say it. But for the most part, Reliquin or Alkosh. Those two are extremely powerful. Now, I'm going to go over the rotation. I'm going to make this quick because we are running out of time. Now, first of all, you want to make sure that your Beast Trap is down. Underneath the target. We'll move out of the way so he doesn't start combat. You also want to make sure that you've got your Flames of Oblivion started before you even get in the fight, so you can get that weapon damage bonus before you start for your nice burst. So keep that up. Beast Trap down. Volley, light, poison, light, swap. Now that's how you start. Your Beast Trap's already running, so we don't need to cast it again. That's how you start. When you're on your front bar, light Rapids to get your Maelstrom buff. Light Venom, light Rendon, light Soul Trap, light Rapids again, light Noxus swap bars. So I'll go over that again. Light Rapids, light Dot Venom, light Dot Rendon, light Dot Soul Trap, light Rapids to reapply it because it's just run out, light Breath swap. Now, you'll notice that your Maelstrom buff, we'll do it quickly now, will stay with you for 4 seconds. So we can put all our dots on. It's about to run out. Reapply it. Swap bars. It's with us on the back bar for a short period of time. By the time we get back to the front, we reapply it again instantly. So we have about a 9-second rotation, maybe 10, depending on mechanics. And we have 8-second uptime on all of our single target damage over time bonuses. So that's why we do that. So to recap, make sure your Flames of Oblivion is running to start with. Beast Trap down. Volley, light, poison, light, swap. Light Rapids. Light Venom. Light Rendon. Light Soul Trap. Light Rapids. Light Breath, swap. Light, volley, light, poison, light, flames, light, Beast Trap, swap. In that order. Light attack between everything. Back bar, when you're fully into your swing, is volley. Or arrow barrage, you know what I mean. We're going to call it its base ability. Volley, light, poison, light, flames, light, Beast Trap, swap. Whenever you put your banner down, try and do it before the Beast Trap, because Beast Trap animation cancelling is much, much easier, and sometimes the banner doesn't fire. Sometimes you can use your ultimate and it doesn't actually work. So that will help there. And on your front bar, your breath will hit with initial direct damage as you swap without doing the full animation. So we've used our 2 longest animation abilities to swap with. So breath swap, Beast Trap swap. It's very fast. Now, hopefully that made sense. If you are altering your rotation to some extent and you have Steel Tornado on or Whirlwind or Whirling Blades, you obviously take off your Ren and Slashes and you just don't apply that dot and you can get in an extra Rapid Strike. So for argument's sake, if we were going to use Whirling Blades, we wouldn't need to cast that ability unless stuff was nearly dead. So you'd light Rapids, light Venom, light Soul Trap, then you do 2 Rapids instead, and then Breath. So that's another option for you. You have to alter your rotation depending on what you've got available. Also, if you're using Molten Armaments and you took off your Flames of Oblivion, you just use it once every 2nd rotation to keep 100% uptime on Minor Brutality. Anyway, now champion points. We'll go with the red ones first, as we always do. This is for pretty much all content, but you may want to alter these depending on what difficulty you're in, what particular bosses you're up against. Sometimes you need to plug certain gaps, but flat out for most content, this is how I use it. 72 points into Ironclad to increase the reduction to incoming damage from direct attacks. 64 and 64 to give us across the board 13% reduction to all other damage, regardless of what it is, because they're both exactly the same. And 51 points into here to give you a 19% reduction to damage over time. Just note, by the way, you do have Unchained, which means if you break free, your next stamina ability within 5 seconds will be cheaper. So, for argument's sake, you're using Circle of Protection or Vigor or something like that. Pop that when this happens, and you will be a lot cheaper. Saves on your resources. 19 points into quick recovery to increase your heal and receive. That means from your abilities that heal you and from others. So that will help you a lot. And at the same time, because you've got 10 points in this tree, you will get the res passive, which means you'll take less damage while picking somebody up. And you will need to do that. Pro tip, by the way, if you are resing someone and you do have Vigor on your bar, pop a Vigor first, then try and res them. It actually lasts the full duration of res and some now. So you've got that safety barrier, if you like. Also, if you do change your champion points to anything else, depending on the content, of course, even if you take all of these out and put them all in spell resistance or whatever it is you're doing, try and keep 10 points in here just so you can get that passive. 44 points into Warlord to reduce the cost of break free. 75 points into Tenacity to increase our return from heavy attacks if you use them. And 75 into Mooncalf to increase our stam recovery. 72 points into Tumbling to give us a 23% reduction to dodge roll, and 4 points into Shadow Ward. We can't get the 2% out of it, but we can't use the points anywhere else. So we'll put the 4 points in here. Slight block cost reduction, you will be blocking. And for having 75 points in this tree, we have the Treasure Hunter passive, which gets us higher quality loot from chests, which is nice. Nothing in here. 23 points into Master at Arms, giving us a 10% direct damage bonus. Our light attacks, our heavy attacks, our Flames of Oblivion, our Breath, our initial hit from Venom Claw, our initial hit from Poison Injection, our initial hit from Rend and Slashes, and our Dawnbreaker initial hit, any of those, and initial from the Beast Trap when it pops, all of those count as direct damage. So you do want to buffer that a little bit. Did lots and lots of testing with lots and lots of different CP allocations, and this actually did top out quite considerably on in comparison to some of the other setups that I was using. So this is really helpful. That direct damage boost really did close the gap. 3 points into here as well to give us a 2% increase to lights and heavies. We will be doing those, of course, with bows and dual wield. We've got to make sure we never miss a light attack if we can help it. That will plug the gap and does stack with this. 73 points into Thaumaturge. I know we need 72 in here, but we've got 1 point spare. We're doing nothing with it. We'll put it into here. 72 is essentially what you need. So we've got 23% increase to our damage over time, which we are spec'd heavily for. Our Maelstrom weapons boost our single target damage over time. Our DK passives increase our single target damage over time, and poison bonuses and all that good stuff. Our deadly boosts our damage over time, and of course, our Reliquin is damage over time. 61 points into Precise Strikes. This is very specific, and I'll show you in a moment why we've got 61 in here and we haven't jiggled it to make it a bit more. That'll give us a 21% increase to critical damage and healing. Piercing, we've got 61 points in here to give us 4476 into our penetration. This has considered all possible buffs, debuffs, and bonuses, and we actually hit 18200 just about, so this is perfect. Don't mess with this unless you really have to. 49 into Mighty. Now, I know I normally go 64 into here, but the extra bonus to the increased direct and light attack damage and the extra bonus to damage over time combined with the spare points actually outweighed the 64 points in here. The 2% overall that we lost gave us a 10% overall to all of our direct and a 2% overall to the lights and heavies anyway. So this actually worked out really nice. We do have the Exploiter passive, obviously, because we've got a crap ton of points in here. 75 points in here will give you the off-balance bonus, meaning when something is off-balance, especially if you're using something like the Easy Sork or off-balance build beside of it, they will help you buff up your damage. Now, we didn't go over traits because I wanted to show the champion points first of all. We are 19% crit damage in our Mundustone. We are 21% crit damage on our champion points, but we're using Divines on absolutely everything. I know I usually go flat and Divines combined, but with this in mind, so if we go here, Beast Trap is on, all good stuff. We need to get a combat metrics out of this in a second. I'll show you. Bloodthirsty on the jewelry, by the way, while we're waiting for that to finish. Bloodthirsty on everything. Weapon damage, 3 Bloodthirsty. That will give us a 30% increase to our execute. We don't technically have an execute. We have a passive execute in our poison injection. We have a passive execute in our dual wield. And all of our damage will now go up, not just those, at low health. It's really helpful. Combat metrics, here we go. We are on 100% crit exactly. So that is why we're full Divines. Usually I go a little bit less and a little bit more crit chance, but I've manipulated the champion points to give us more flat. So now we've hit 100% crit damage on the nose with our Mundus, our champion points, and our traits combined. Now, I'm going to show you a rather fast dummy demonstration. I'm going to explain to you the conditions as well. Basically, we're using the squishy setup, which we're demonstrating now, the one I've shown you, and we are using this food. This will give us max stamina, simulating we are using flat food. We are using 493 recovery, simulating the fact that we've got 2 Dwemer spiders flying around the room, and there's a couple of master staves in there, and I'm taking synergies actively. If you're in that situation, you can match this recovery. If you're not, you can't, and you need to use recovery food. That will give you different results. So we're going to imagine I'm using flat food, and I've got a very optimized group where people are throwing the synergies at the right times. They are helping with extra stam, sustain, and recovery, and there is Hercines present. So, with a full rotation, here we go. So first of all, thank you all very, very much for watching. I hugely appreciate the support. And if you are not subscribed on YouTube, please do hit that button. It is free. Furthermore, if you want to help support outside of the channel, there are some links in the info section for Patreon, Twitter, Facebook, and of course the website XynodeGaming.com. There's an all about mechanics page with all of the dungeons explained, demonstrated, and there's also an add-on on there for PC as well if that kind of stuff interests you. And of course, don't forget I live stream every single day from 10 PM onwards on Twitch, UK time by the way, unless I say otherwise on Twitter. Once again, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.